Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amir Alawi, Global Marketing Director of Coins. Joining me is our founder, Wei. Welcome, Wei. Yeah, so hi. How did you spend the New Year's? And do you have any alpha to share with our community?
Alpha, now is a good time to get into Bitcoin. That's always a good alpha. How did I spend my new year? I completely unplugged for about a week and a half. I went back to Bali where we had our retreat in early December. Went back there for about 10 days with the family. We got a nice little a beach cliff house and then just completely unplugged from the rest of the world. So that's why I look very refreshed and then ready to attack 2026.
Yeah, I love that. And this isn't like in the questions, but like
Uh-huh.
when I joined Coins, one of the reasons I joined Coins is how passionate you are about the Philippines. Can you share why the Philippines and like why you chose like Coins.ph and like the headquarters here?
Yeah, sort of Philippines. I think there's a couple of really cool things. I think at least from back in 2022, 2021, sort of in my previous job as a CFO of Binance, I basically looked at a lot of investments and a lot of launching new businesses and getting licensed exchanges off the ground back in sort of from 2018 to 2021. And then one country and then one company that kept on popping up on our radar was the Philippines, due to its sort of crypto trading activity. And then one company that kept on popping up was actually coins.ph. And then that sort of originally piqued my interest in not just the Philippines, but I think in coins specifically, because we saw coins as a sort of one of the earliest licensed exchanges anywhere in the world. But what was really unique about Coins was that in addition to its cryptocurrency exchange license, it actually also held a payment license. And then for me, after leaving Binance and then seeing that Coins was actually for sale at that point, I decided to sort of to look at it as an acquisition target personally. And one of the really unique things was actually, Coins itself. One of the key things I think that it provided was actually, offered a lot of investor in the Philippines early access to Bitcoin and Ethereum quite early, since like 2015, 2016. So a lot of the early Coins users were actually made very good return based on their investments. But another activity that actually Coins sort of helped to introduce, I think, anywhere in the world was actually, payments and remittance via cryptocurrency rails. Coins was actually one of the original payment partners for Ripple in their XRP sort of global remittance program. So even back in 2019, 2020, Coins was actually very active in developing remittance rails via blockchain and then using crypto. So sort of for me, it became very natural that sort of, Coins in the business itself, under sort of its licenses, not only does it have a very happy group of users, but it also has a lot of externalities in its core business model beyond just cryptocurrency trading. And lastly, I think it comes back to the Philippines. I think, in addition to sort of the user activity that we saw, anytime you see sort of, global ranking of crypto adoption, Philippines would always rank at top of the list, top five, top 10. Even recently, with sort of, I would say, play to earn sort of coming off a little bit, Philippines still sort of one of the top 20 countries in terms of global crypto adoption. Sort of for me, it's just sort of like it's a very attractive, young, dynamic, population, and at the same time, people are actually relatively, acceptant. People are actually very excited to try new things, with crypto being one of these sort of these new investment products, and sort of then we come back to remittance. Philippines has major remittance country in the world, but it is also sort of, if you look at the top 10 sort of major remittance intaking countries, there's only 2 to 3 countries in there that actually have existing crypto licensing regimes, and then Philippines is like, two of the top five and three of the top 10 countries that have active global crypto remittance, active remittance corridor, but also has an active crypto license, and Coins sort of has all of these sort of necessary licenses sort of to attack that market. So sort of for me, I just saw sort of a core business in terms of offering investment products in crypto in the Philippines that has an active, product market fit. But also, with sort of the dynamic population in the Philippines, still an opportunity to sort of, build, and sell other financial services on top of crypto. And then lastly, just sort of, the major remittance angle from a business and from a country perspective. And lastly, sort of after been running coins for almost 3 years now, what I've seen is that all of these investment thesis that I had back in 2022 still exist. And if anything, there's actually more opportunities now, especially with the rest of the world now coming on to sort of some of the things that we've been building here in the Philippines specifically. And we've also found is that a lot of the things, both from a product and service perspective, that we've actually rolled out in the Philippines have product market fit in other regions. So now we're basically, rolling out our existing product that we've built in the Philippines into other countries, sort of under a licensed and under a sort of a licensed regime in other regions. So yeah, sorry, it's a pretty long winded answer. We can talk about it more, but yeah, but I think still very excited about the opportunities here. But I think one of the things that I said, last couple of years, like we want to be the first sort of global fintech business coming out of the Philippines.
Yeah, and that's one of the things like I really resonated with, and like the team that you brought on recently like is just solid. So you touched on compliance and regulation, and you looked at this really early on. Why is it important for asset exchanges to like register with regulators, and why were you like eyeing regulation and coins.ph being a licensed exchange like really early on? What are
Yeah,
the dangers, yeah, for users if a company's not registered?
yeah. I mean, I just think that financial regulation, banking regulation, payment regulation, those all of those things are relatively mature now, right? And I think as a service provider, as a financial service provider, I think it just in general, anytime that you take custody of user assets, like whether they're bank deposits, whether they're stocks, whether they're tokens in our situation, right, or whether they're other type of assets, anytime that a third party takes custody of user assets, there ought to be some type of regulation that you follow. And mainly because there are rules, right? Whether it's transparency on the assets, whether it's like certain regulations in terms of what can you do with the user assets that you hold in custody. And from my perspective, that's a critical sort of regulation is one of those critical things for this and for any industry, especially in the financial services world, to actually get mainstream adoption and to actually get more people and then more institutions to adopt to adopt what is it this industry, right? So sort of for me, I saw that pretty early on, during my time at Binance, but also sort of early on in the pre-Binance, looking at crypto as a whole, right? You can't and from what I've seen so far, the regulated world wasn't, the TradFi world wasn't actually that accepting of crypto for a long time, right? And certain countries sort of adopted crypto regulations, right? And Philippines is actually one of the early countries that actually came out. I think originally we had a virtual currency exchange regime that we transitioned into a virtual asset service provider regime under the central bank, under the BSP. So I think so sort of just having that license and then operating within a licensed environment, I actually think gives us Coin specifically a competitive advantage vis-a-vis the other regions, because we know, because our entire product infrastructure, our tech stack, our business practices have actually been built with regulation in mind. And in terms of running, whether granted, right, because of these practices, our users may have to deal with more compliance checks, may have to deal with more hassle, but for us, these things are embedded within our business, so we know how to deal with these things as they come in. and we know how to react to these questions and be proactive and sort of putting in safety valves for users. And I think a lot of that was pretty clear during the whole FTX debacle, where they basically used user assets for self dealing, right? And and you can't really audit that or do anything about it unless you have a regulation in place that's firmly state this is a jurisdiction that you're regulated in. These are the rules that you're following. And if, as managers or owners of these businesses, you make false promises or have false things, you basically have jail risk, right? And I think that's something that sits firmly at every regulated financial institution that may not exist at a lot of these offshore places. And for us, we get a lot of user complaints. We get a lot of, due to misunderstanding. But then we do have to answer to them when they get reported to our regulators, right? And I joke around as like, if your assets are stuck, there's actually at least, for whatever reason, right? For misunderstandings, for lost passwords, for whatever, there is a recourse for your assets, and then for the action of the exchanges that you trade on. And I think another sort of clear example was something that took place in last October, October 10th or 11th, where a lot of sort of offshore exchanges liquidated users without giving a clear reason that we still haven't even gotten today, right? And then there's no recourse of action other than complaining on social media, right? Whereas if that taken place on coins, then regulators would come in and investigate, and we would be forced to sort of so sort of that recourse, and it creates a set of clear rules that exchanges needs to follow in protecting their users. And I think more and more of it will come true. I think more of it will be more apparent that hey, this once sort of our crypto asset class gets so big that there are going to be things that's going to have to be under regulatory coverage for the protection of the users. So I think that's something that we're pretty early on in terms of seeing, and I think a lot of these things are embedded in our businesses, so and mainly embedded in the cost of the business that we're delivering. So we actually see that as an advantage as the rest of the world comes online from a regulation perspective.
Yeah, like really good points. And also, crypto used to be seen as a speculative asset class, and now as like governments, banking institutions, and like the bigger players are looking at crypto, like we're embracing like just like having more structure and like having all of these regulations in place.
Yeah,
So
that goes back to sort of like institutional adoption, right? Those two words have been whispered in the crypto world for almost 10 years. Like, but the thing is that to get institutional adoption, to get a lot of the sort of the mainstream money to come into our space, they need rules, right? They need to know the rules of the road. That you can't just have continue. If crypto, I think, will continue to be the wild wild west that it was, 5 years ago, even 2 or 3 years ago, I think it'll be hard for more money to come into the space. And I think yeah, so I think we're at this sort of like critical juncture now, and that goes back to sort of what we're seeing in the price is that until this sort of this market infrastructure bill gets passed in the U.S., I think that's sort of the last barrier for mainstream money to come into crypto.
yeah, and touching on what you said, so like now like crypto is becoming like the invisible rails, and like you don't even need to know you're using crypto to be using crypto, and like that's the next step. And a lot of like remittance and like all of these like people who never interacted with crypto will slowly transition and like use it for their everyday lives. And that's one of the things we're pushing with coins as more than a crypto exchange and it being a super app. So there's a lot of exciting changes that has happened in the past few months. What are the key highlights that stood out for you?
Yeah, I think for coins specifically, I think for the industry as a whole, I think it's just continuing people that are building, right? Like for coins, we've been shipping products every month, every week for the last like 18, like for the last 2 years now. It's just that in 2024, a lot of the stuff was on the crypto side, and then last year, a lot of the products we shipped were actually on the payment side. And that speaks to sort of like especially with regards to stablecoin. I think what the most exciting thing for me that happened for coins in 2025 is that we are the go-to exchange for all things stablecoin in the Philippines. We have the deepest liquidity in terms of trading for USDT and USDC to pesos in the Philippines. And then we have the best price for USDT and USDC in the Philippines. And that basically has led to more and more trading partners, both in the remittance world, in the trade commerce, in the traditional sort of TradFi world, in the investing world, and I think in the commercial sort of retail world coming in, as more and more sort of businesses and retail individuals, remittance companies come into stablecoins. We welcome them to basically trade stablecoins, send stablecoins, buy, sell stablecoins, invest with stablecoins through the Coins platform. And I think that's something, and then that's something that I think we've been really excited about, and I think that goes back to a lot of the work that we've been doing, from day one, right? In terms of embedding stablecoin, in terms of supporting, like we support USDT and USDC, but we support like 10 different kinds of USDT on Tron, on BSC, on Ton, on Plasma, like even the newer chains, right? And the same is true for USDC. And we basically have partnership agreements with the issuers of USDC with Circle. We're part of their Circle sort of global payment network, and we also have a deep partnership with USDT where we can actually have original minting of USDT, and that gives a lot of people a safe in mind, or a safety of mind, in terms of whether my stable coins are clean and it's not tainted by anything, right? So a lot of these things we've built, and that's sort of embedded in what we have. But most importantly, I think near the end of last year, we started bringing better liquidity on the trading. So if you look at our pricing for USDT, we have only, I think, like 1 to 3% spread on the trading of USDT and USDC, and that's just as tight, if not tighter, than sort of traditional FX now. So I think for us, that's a product that I'm actually really excited about in terms of what we've built in 2025, and I think that provides a solid foundation for us as we sort of build, as we start to see more growth, more, not just growth in sort of the stablecoin trading itself, but actually the usage of what you mentioned earlier in terms of traditional players in the remittance space starting to use stablecoins as part of their business. But then from a user perspective, you actually don't see it. It's embedded in sort of the way that money is sent and transferred globally. And for us, there's stablecoin yield product that we want to bring in. There's stablecoin denominated assets that we want to bring to our users. There's just a lot of things that's happening on the stablecoin front that we have been building on in 2025. But I think that's just the beginning of sort of more stablecoin related and derivative products that we want to bring to the market and our users in 2026.
Nice. Coins reported a 20% growth in total crypto trading volume.
Mhm.
So, what are the drivers for growth, and how do you think this can be sustained for 2026?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I actually think the my expectations and my for 2026, 25 was actually a lot higher. I mean, I think at the beginning of the year, I was calling for $250,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year. So pretty off by that target, I think. But Bitcoin did, at some point did hit close to $150,000 in 2025. I think I'll still keep my Bitcoin target for 2026 to be $250,000. I just think the momentum stalled a little bit because of the crash in early October. I think that sunk a lot of. I think that the cascading liquidation that took place on October 10th and 11th really hurt the market. And I think so. But irregardless, I think we continue to build. And I do feel like the momentum in crypto and Bitcoin is actually back. and it's probably even more so, I think, as even some of the L1s coming to be more active, I think, in the stablecoin space. I think for 2026, I think the clear theme is going to be institutional adoption. As I mentioned before, the market infrastructure bill that you're seeing in the U.S. right now is sort of like that trigger that once sort of once pulled is going to be massive. Because I think it will allow for financial institutions to trade directly on crypto exchanges. It will allow for banks and other types of financial institutions to add crypto as part of their investment holdings, and I think both of those things will have ripples across markets globally, in addition to the U.S. And it would be much more so true here in the Philippines. Like I joke around, it's like you have BlackRock selling Bitcoin ETF in the US, but we don't have a Bitcoin ETF here in the Philippines, right? We've been trying to push one out here at Coins, but there are just a lot of regulatory barriers. Like we don't even have the rules for ETF here, right? Like there are crypto stock products that we want to push out, but we're still waiting for the SEC to give us permit, give us license to do so. So I think there's many growth drivers for our business here in at coins.ph. Some of the things are hinges on regulatory approval, but the product is ready. Like for example, in the first half of 2025, we released a Bitcoin. We released a lending product where you can actually collateralize your Bitcoin to get a loan. But we had sort of had to pull back on that due to regulatory issues. But we hope to bring that product back, right? So lending and then yield stocks. For payments, I think there's going to be some really cool stuff that we're going to be coming out with first, without sort of needing any regulatory sign off on. So all of these things I think are coming. I think everything that you're seeing in the U.S. in the markets, we hope to be able to release to our users here in the Philippines.
Yeah, and that's something our users don't know. Like even like leverage trading, they don't know like how much regulation goes into everything.
Last year we released something that lets you sort of borrow up to 3 to 4 times your position to trade. And all like what I tell people is like a lot of these products we have in our bag already. We just need regulatory approval to basically release it to our users. And I think one product maybe for the second half of the year we're looking at is our prediction markets. The trick there is that there's more regulatory uncertainty around that. Sort of for me, I hope to be able to get margin trading stocks out first, and then maybe based on our communications with our regulators, get something on the predictive markets out second half of the year.
Yeah, so there's more to coins than just trading crypto. We're also a super app with a really impressive 283% growth in fiat transactions, revenue, and trading volume. Can you share like the motivation for the new positioning and how Coins is going to navigate an already tight payment landscape?
Yeah, and I actually think the payment landscape in the Philippines is actually very exciting because I think there's still a cash mindset amongst the merchants and even among some of the users. I think COVID, pushed a lot of, at least from a retail user perspective, pushed really behavior to be more online, push people to start using digital money. And then for coins, I think what we wanted to originally build, the product that I was looking to build a couple of years ago, was for people to basically pay with crypto, right? You can basically just sort of scan your crypto, scan anything, and then you can pay with crypto. I think that was a function that we built. Where we found sort of the missing link wasn't actually the paying part; it was actually the receiving part. From a merchant perspective, most 99.99% of the merchant wants to receive in pesos. So there needs to be some kind of a transaction that needs to take place at the point of sales. And back then, merchants were only accepting either Gcash or Maya money, right? But I think one thing that really changed 2 years ago was the BSP had a coordinated effort to really push out universal QR payment code. So from a merchant perspective, you just have to display one QR code, and then you can pay into that with any wallets and banks, right? So as long as you're part of the sort of the bank net InstaPay sort of payment network. And we saw that as like, hey, if we can just sort of integrate QRPH with USDT or USDC, then you can pay with crypto. Like, it's pretty straightforward. So we've actually built this QRPH sort of payment functionality, and a lot of the merchants sort of really started using QRPH the beginning of this year, when I think sort of it got released from sort of a testing phase into a market phase, and we basically just released it to the merchants without the stablecoin front, and I think just in that itself has really driven the growth with our payment business. That being said, we're still going to be. I still want to add the crypto element on top of it, so that if you come into the Philippines as a tourist and you just have USDT, you can basically pay, right, as long as there's a QR code. And I think we made that. We announced a partnership with Ronin to be one of the sort of the third party sort of crypto wallets that we can do it with here in the Philippines specifically. And we hope to be able to do that with a lot of other third-party wallets as well going forward. And I think going back to sort of the payment landscape, I think like it's still quite early, to be honest. I mean, um, if you look at sort of the even for QRPH or the instant payment, a lot of the payment is not really real time. It's not real time. Like you still have to fund working capital. There's still like T+2, T+3 settlement date, which means that merchant, although I as a spender, I've already paid the merchant doesn't even get the money until 2 or 3 days later, right? That's not really real time payment. Like, ideal situation is that I make the payment to the merchant, money is extracted from my wallet, the merchant gets that money right away, right, with basically minimal transaction fees attached to it, right? So sort of for us, like, we think that we can build a better product with our crypto rails, and that's something that we want to release to our merchants this year as well. Especially, I think once we get a full release of our PHPC, which is the peso-backed stablecoin product, once we get approval for that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
blockchain, like making it like cheaper, faster, and just solving this
yeah, I mean, it's
issue of
just
like cash.
yeah, and it's like real instant payment, right? I think that's what we're trying to solve for, right? Because right now, with QRPH, that the underlying movement of money still relies on moving from one bank to another bank to another bank to another bank, right? Which causes delays, and there's a lack of availability on the weekends as well, right? So I think if we can get to blockchain rails, and that's real instant.
Yeah, and a big number of the population is still underbanked, especially in countries like the Philippines, in Latam, in Africa, and India. And like this is something that can be solved in one aspect, like with what we're doing with coins.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
can
I
you
think
share more?
what we're doing with coins, I think we're bringing some of our business practices and know-how, I think, that we've built in the Philippines, especially on the stablecoin remittance angle. We're bringing that to other countries. We brought that. We launched in Brazil, and we're looking to launch in a few more Latin America and African countries this year as well. I think that's actually much more straightforward. That relies on us getting licensed locally, and then building up, stable coin and local currency trading pairs, and then basically bring in remittance companies that we're already servicing to be able to use, our platform for their remittance and payments. I think in the Philippines specifically, what I see is that once we go into the provinces, I still see merchants are not that. A lot of the merchants, I think, are not that savvy in terms of how to use digital payments. Not even just crypto, right? Just like how do I use digital payments? How do I manage my money? How do I manage? How do I get more business by allowing for digital payments? And how do I get my money quicker? And how do I plan future purchasing? So I think it's very natural for us to actually go beyond, go into the provinces, to actually bring our services to them, and from these sort of communications, we found that still quite underserved, not just users, right, but actually merchants themselves, and I think that's something that we're actually very excited about.
And speaking of stablecoins, so can you share more about PHPC, especially to our users who don't know like what PHPC is and the BSP sandbox and what's next for PHPC?
Yeah, PHPC is the first, what I call sort of the first regulatorily approved peso-backed stablecoin in the Philippines. The central bank approved our sandbox application back in 2025. So I think it was last year, and then we released it on our platform in I think July, and we basically had a set of KPIs that we had to hit, both in terms and the two major use cases. One is actually to be used in remittance, so we can continue to decrease the cost of remittance, from even from 3 to 5% to be less than 1%. And then we had a couple of institutional adoption, both with licensed businesses, with a licensed exchange in the UAE, and with a stablecoin company in Australia. So both of them actually used PHPC as part of their remittance. And then we basically demonstrated that when they are using PHPC as part of the remittance, the fees get lowered, right, to be less than 1%. It's like less, like 10 bips or 20 bips, which is quite low. And the other one that we want to demonstrate is that retail users can use it to hold it and earn money with it. And then for that one, there's a lot of players that I think still within the Ronin ecosystem that played games, earned RON, and then swapped that to PHPC, and then basically used coins to off ramp that money back out. So it basically demonstrated that it provides digital earning opportunities for basically for gamers in the Philippines, and I think both of those situations were net positive for basically for businesses and for retail, and from a regulatory perspective, we brought we brought an additive financial product. And sort of for that, we were approved to exit the sandbox. I think there's a bunch of conditions we had to meet for the exit. So we're still in the process of exiting the sandbox. Once it exits the sandbox, we can actually deploy PHPC in many more areas. I think a cross-border remittance is one major area, but I think one thing that I'm actually more excited about is actually DeFi. Having PHPC as sort of, you can use it as a USDC or USDT for DeFi offerings, for yield offerings, for investment opportunities. I think all of that would be quite exciting, I think, for our users in the Philippines. And lastly, I think what's sort of like the way we made it is actually quite easy to use. So anyone who has a Coins account can basically swap their peso into PHPC at zero cost, right? You basically, if you deposit 100 pesos, you can get 100 PHPC automatically when you convert it. And when you convert out from PHPC to peso, we'll charge you 1 BIP, which is like 0.001%, right? So it's like minimal cost when you redeem your PHPC back into PHP. So I think that's how you can mint in crypto terms. It's called minting and redeeming. And then once you have PHPC, I think when we had it last year, we offered users up to 10% sort of annual yield, annual return if they held PHPC on coins. So we basically delivered a lot of airdrops to our users, and we delivered and that basically equivalent of like 10% yield. So if you just hold PHPC, you don't even have to stake it. You'll basically get around 10% yield on coins. So as I think there's a lot of benefits for our users back then, and then we hope to be able to release it to a much wider audience without limitations once we get out of the BSP sandbox.
Yeah, and something our users have been really liking is they don't even have to off ramp because they can use their coins wallet to trade, to buy their coffee, to pay their utility bills. Like it just all exists in one app. And then now, like the next step is like earning yield and cashbacks and that type of thing, so that everything just lives in one super app. So, Coins has entered into a lot of partnerships and alliances. Some key partners are USDT, Ronin, BC Remit, Hashkey. Why are these alliances important for Coins, and how do these benefit our users?
Yeah, that's a whole variety of partnerships. For our users, some of them are more specific. Like the hash key relationship is actually quite interesting because I want to service direct. I want to be able to offer cryptos as an alternative for the 200 plus or the 300 plus, that 300,000 plus OFWs that are working and living in Hong Kong. As you know, Hashkey is the number one licensed cryptocurrency exchange in Hong Kong. So what we're trying to build is actually a joint product where you can actually deposit HKD into Hashkey, buy stable coins, and then send that stable coin back to back to coins.ph, right? And then if you're an OFW working and living in Hong Kong, you can get an account with Hashkey and an account with coins, and you can actually control your own money, right? You don't have to go through a third party. You don't have to line up at a cash place, right? If you have a bank account in Hong Kong, you can deposit HKD in a hash key, buy USDC, and then send that USDC or USDT to the same named account at Coins, and then sell that coin, sell that down in pesos, and then basically within your Coins PH account, you can then basically send that pesos back to your family or to your own account, to your own Gcash account, or to your own Maya account, or to your own bank account, or to basically any cash disbursement outlets that Coins service. And then we think that's actually a much cheaper process than any fees that you get charged, from third parties that you remit. So I think that's one service offering that's quite direct. In terms of our partnership with Ronin, that one's interesting. Is that we're providing, there's about ballpark still a couple of 100,000, players that's part of the Ronin network. So what we hope to do there is that you can actually use coins directly as your on and off ramp into the Ronin ecosystem, and we provide you with the cheapest fees to do so. And for BC Remit, that's a much more generic partnership. I think we recently announced something similar with Remitly. I think that one, from a retail user perspective, I think you won't be able to look at it. It's not something that users can touch and feel. It's more sort of something embedded in that we allow for these guys to build to add stable coins as part of their service network, so they can provide cheaper fees and faster access to their user base. And that's sort of the general sort of three types of partnerships that we have so far.
Yeah, and in terms of like our global community, we now have over 18.6 million registered users across our markets. Can you share more on Coins XYZ and like the growth you see and like why people should pay attention to coins? Not just Coins PH, but coins globally.
Yeah. So we're in the process of pivoting Coins from just Coins PH to Coins XYZ, which is a sort of our global brand that I want Coins PH to sit under. I think the Coins brand specifically, on a global basis, is something that we're building right now, and we're building it not necessarily as sort of like one offshore exchange. We're actually building it as one country at a time. So outside of the Philippines, the two biggest countries that Coins services are Brazil and Thailand. We have about almost 15, 20 plus people in Brazil now. And we first launched operation in Brazil in February of 2025 under the Coins XYZ brand. And right now we actually have a full stacked service team, from compliance to sales to marketing to social media, to regulatory, and to basically and to user engagement. And then in Brazil, we position ourselves as the payment exchange. So anyone that is sort of within the payment industry that needs crypto services, we are the go-to service provider for you in Brazil. We offer trading pairs in local currency, which is Brazilian real, against USDT, USDC, Bitcoin, a couple of other currencies. But we actually have one of the best, liquidity, both in terms of price and depth, for stable coins to Brazilian real in the Brazilian markets. So it is a locally licensed business that's operated there. And again, it is also fully plugged into the QR payment ecosystem in Brazil, which is called Pix. And in Thailand, similar services in terms of trading against the local currency, which is Thai baht. And then we look to add a few more regional currencies to be serviced, as I mentioned, in Latin America and in Africa this year.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for joining our AMA. Also, to our users who are tuning in, thank you so much. So, tag us with your questions. Make sure you're following us on socials. Make sure you're following Way. And any last message like that you want to leave?
Yeah, I think what I want to say is that I think the market is the crypto market. I think in my 8 years now is my starting my eighth year in crypto, and what I've just seen, like, massive amount of changes, right? But the people that kind of stick around are the real builders. And what we hope to do is we hope to continue to build in this space, and we want to build products that people use on a daily basis. And we believe that we're at sort of this new sort of, like, crypto is no longer a kid, it's no longer a teenager, it's sort of coming into a young adult. And as a young adult, you start to have more responsibilities, and you start to and I think that's where sort of crypto is. So I think, like, sort of the meme coin era that we experienced in 2024 was fun and exciting, but it didn't really come back in 2025, right? And in 2026, we're going to see more sort of, more mature products, real investment products that have real value, and we hope to bring these services and these products to our users. And lastly, I think one major point that I kind of want to make is that please do give us feedback on our products and services. We know that things change all the time, and we're not perfect. So any feedback that we and I personally and our company as a whole, we take user feedback and community engagement very seriously. So if there are things that you want to see within coins, or if there are sort of things that you see for us improving, please give us feedback. And we would love sort of to engage more with the community this way as well.
Yeah, so we love conversations and excited for like what Coins is up to and what we have planned in the pipeline. So thank you so much. Thank you, Wei. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.